Hello and welcome back to the Modifier series. My name is Frederik Steinmetz for BlenderDiplom.com, and today I'd like to present the Smooth Modifier to you. This is a model I got out of makehuman.org. Makehuman.org, you can customize your own model and then you can export it to Blender. Back when I downloaded this, their rigging and weight painting was not that great. It's gotten much better by now, but for what I'm trying to demonstrate, a non-perfect weight painting is actually better, just for the purpose of demonstration. Okay, so this is the model. I have the armature on it and nothing else, no modifiers. And let's just pose this a little. You can immediately see that here the shoulder gets kind of squished inwards. It's very hard to prevent this actually, and what you usually do for cases like that is corrective shape keys, but they are very tedious to set up, and if there's a quicker solution, you probably want to go with that one. Now, I can't promise you to get rid of this entirely, because even the correct smooth modifier cannot do magic, but it can make it a lot better. So let's also move this up, and you can see there's a huge issue here. This is actually due to, you could correct this with better weight painting, but let's not. Now I'm going to raise this arm and go a little Egyptian style, something like this. All I want is bad deformations, like for example this one. Okay, now I'm done posing, so I'm going to hide the armature because it's in the way, and I'm going to add the corrective smooth modifier. It's under deform. There it is. Okay, off, on. You can see it's much better. So let's discuss the options. The factor is simply a factor from 0 to 1, meaning in percent how much your model gets smooth. You can just slide this back and forth and see how much you want your model to be deformed. Okay, the repeat factor, it repeats the smoothing over and over and ultimately smoothes it quite a lot if I go too high. So unless you're looking for this weird effect, you might want to stay below 10. So I'm just going to leave it at 5 for the purpose of this demonstration. Now, going down from the top, we have the smooth type. By default, it's set to simple. Simple means it's relaxing the vertices. By relaxing the vertices means, let's say we have a vertex here, and a vertex here, and a vertex here. And they form a face like that. Now some modifier moves this vertex over there. So now it would be like this. Then Blender will calculate the distance between here and here, compare it to here and here, and try to move the distorted vertex kind of back. It's called relaxing. So it's checking how far each vertex is off and tries to bring it back to its original location, which in most cases works fine. But if you choose length weight, in a lot of cases, this might actually improve the quality. You can see it most dominantly in the shoulder. And what the length weight does, it will also take into account how far the vertex is from its next neighbor, and thereby trying to get a more accurate result if you have a topology that is not as regular or clean as you might want it. That means that some vertices are further apart than others. Then this option should actually make it more correct, so it gets less deformed back into its original state. Next button is only smooth. To my understanding, this is just a preview, so you can see what the modifier would do. It's basically the same thing as the smooth modifier, but it has much fewer options because it's just meant as a preview. And why we would need a preview becomes obvious if I use vertex groups. I created the smooth group, and you can see 100% this should be affected, this and this only 50%, and the elbow and the hand shouldn't be affected at all. So if I go back into normal mode, I delete the smooth group and uncheck only smooth. Okay, you can see if I use the smooth group, the ankle and the elbow jump back into their unsmooth form. So that's pretty much the same thing as every modifier works. You can specify vertex groups and weight them to limit or influence the effect of the modifier to certain regions. We have two options left. One is pin boundaries and one is original coordinates. Both will not do anything in this model, so let's switch to another one I prepared. Okay, so here I have Suzanne. Suzanne has these spikes in her head and they are produced by hooks, which means there is one hook for this, and this vertex, and the hook is dragging those vertices out. Okay, the important thing is that I did not change the geometry. If I disable all the hook modifiers, like so, you can see the geometry is not changed. And the important thing about why I did this with modifiers is, if I now use a correct smooth, you can see that the spikes disappear. So I can deform the ear, that's what I did. I can disable the modifier. The spikes are there, but the ear is hideous. But if I use the modifier, the ear gets corrected nicely, but the spikes also disappear. The reason is, the rest source here is original coordinates. By original, they mean before any of the modifiers gets applied. That means this. This is the original rest pose. Anything that comes after this, meaning any modifier, will be considered a deformation by the corrective smooth, and the corrective smooth modifier will compensate for it, meaning smoothing it out. And of course, those spikes, pretty much the unsmoothest thing you can do, so they get eliminated almost completely. So the thing is, I only want to smooth out what is distorted by the armature. I want to ignore these three. What I can do for that is I can undo the armature, and I can choose original coordinates, which is the standard, which is these, or I can choose a combination of modifiers, the one that is visible at the moment, and then choose bind. Bind means now all these three modifiers here are taken into account as static. It's the same effect as if we would have applied all three of them, except for you don't need to apply them. Now I'll unbind this and switch back to original coordinates. As I said, smooth. If I want to bind this, I have to click bind, otherwise it actually it won't do anything at all. You can see if nothing happens. Now I bind, meaning I'm taking into account all the three hooks, but not the armature. And now if I re-enable the armature, you can see the ear gets smoothed out, which is what I want, but the spikes stay the same. This is because we told the correct smooth modifier the spikes are actually intentional, don't smooth them. Which brings us to the only option that's left in this little menu, which is pin boundaries. Click this a couple of times, it didn't do anything. What you have to understand is what boundary vertices are. And it's not explained here or on the homepage, but a boundary vertex is right here. If you have an open mesh, closed mesh doesn't have any boundary vertices at all. An open mesh has boundary vertices, and thus are those that do not have a face on each edge they are connected to. Meaning this vertex, each edge is connected to are these edges, and they all form a face. This one is connected to three edges only, and two of them don't form a face. So that's the border or the boundary. So if you uncheck that, the boundary does not get deformed. I didn't really find an applicable incidence here, because when I actually deform the boundaries, they look horrible, and it looked much better when I smoothed them. But I found another example upon trying for a little bit. This is a plane that's been subdivided. It has a cast modifier, cast modifier bulges it, as if a sphere would actually cast its deformation from below. Now let's imagine that this is not smooth enough. I want this to be more smooth. But I want the base to stay exactly the same because it's fit on my surface, or it's fit right in between where it was supposed to be. But you can see the modifier also changes the corners here. And in order to prevent that, you can simply say pin the boundaries. And now the edges are left alone. So I guess that's it about the Corrective Smooth modifier. Thank you for watching. And as always, please do try this at home.